Episode, the SAS, a secret British strike force, are on a suicidal mission. As told by their commanding officer, Major David Sterling, and the men critical to the action. In the Sahara Desert, they must infiltrate undetected behind enemy lines, mount a mass jeep attack on a German airfield, and with machine guns blazing, destroy dozens of aircraft. If they can put the Luftwaffe out of action, they could help turn the tide of the war in North Africa. At a secret forward operating base, hidden 100 miles behind enemy lines, a group of elite warriors from the British Special Air Service, or SAS, prepare for an assault on the German-held airfield at Sidi Haneish, 250 miles northwest of Cairo. Between them and their objective, 40 miles of hostile desert. Previous raids have earned them a savage reputation, and now the Germans are ready and waiting for their next attack. So this time they're loading up into a fleet of 18 modified jeeps, bristling with machine guns. It's vital they succeed. Failure could allow the Axis powers continued victories in the Middle East. At this stage in the war, Nazi Germany is dominating. Hitler's forces control most of Europe, vast swathes of Russia, and much of North Africa. These next few months will prove to be the turning point for the global conflict. The Americans have only recently joined the fight, and Great Britain, for the most part, has been on her own, failing to stem the Nazi tide for nearly 3 years of war. Now in the North African desert, Germany's apparently invincible Field Marshal Erwin Rommel, the Desert Fox, threatens to destroy the British 8th Army, the Desert Rats.
By July of 1942, the British were in real trouble. The Germans had pushed them all the way back into Egypt. They were on their back foot. Cairo was being threatened. And if they didn't do something dramatic, there was a really good chance that they were going to lose all of North Africa.
Britain desperately needs the help of this elite group of desert specialists who have been tasked with destroying the German planes that supply the front line. They are known simply as L Detachment. At the wheel of the front jeep is their commanding officer, a 6'6" Scottish aristocrat, Major David Sterling. His leadership qualities and revolutionary theories on clandestine warfare are to make him a father of all future special forces. The Special Air Service is his brainchild. An elite unit designed to strike deep behind German lines and take the fight directly to Rommel and his all-conquering Africa Corps.
Very few soldiers in the British Army will ever have such a chance as we've got. With luck, we'll polish off Rommel'S entire fighter force.
Sterling's SAS have been specifically selected for hazardous duty behind enemy lines. Next to the CO, Corporal Johnny Cooper. This pencil-thin Scot with a sharp sense of humor had been an amateur actor before joining the elite British commandos. He was just 20 years old.
There was a notice up about commandos going to the Middle East, and I was interviewed by a major. He said, "I think you're much younger than you say you are," but I got away with that okay.
Riding behind the lead jeep, a 6'4" Captain Blair Paddy Main. This world-class rugby player was super fit, ruthless, an unrelenting fighter, and hard drinker. Uncompromising on and off the battlefield, he was revered and feared by his own men and the enemy alike. He followed a simple shoot first, no questions asked philosophy.
When you enter a room full of the enemy, kill the first one that moves. He has started to think and is therefore dangerous.
Sterling's men have nearly 40 miles to travel before they get to target, and they are relying on jeeps for the first time.
Desert driving was a skill. It's easier to drive in column slowly. These guys were driving fast, and they fanned out so they didn't eat the sand chucked up in the vehicles in front. This meant the driver carving out fresh tracks and made it far more dangerous with the risk of hitting boulders and mines.
The raid on Sidi Haneish would be Sterling's most important attack to date. By July 1942, the Germans had been advancing for several months. The fast-moving front had extended their supply lines by hundreds of miles. As a result, the Luftwaffe had created much-needed forward desert air bases.
The only way that Rommel was barely keeping his forces supplied was by flying massive amounts of supplies in on the Ju-52 transports. Destroying those transports at the airport meant that Rommel's supply line would dry up, and it would be much more difficult for the Germans to advance any further into Egypt.
These three-engined heavy airlift aircraft, adapted from a pre-war airliner design, could carry over 4 tons of men or equipment. For defense, they relied upon a dorsal machine gun position and were nicknamed Taunt U, Auntie U, and Iron Annie by Axis and Allied troops, respectively. Reconnaissance reports indicate that not only is this airfield crammed with these immensely valuable transport planes, there were also fighter planes and ground attack Stuka dive bombers. Typically, the German Ju-87 was armed with 2 7.92mm forward-firing machine guns in the wings and twin machine guns in the rear cockpit. It could carry a maximum bomb load of up to 1,800 kilograms.
The SAS was particularly concerned with the German Stuka. It was a dive bomber that the Germans used against ground troops. It was enormously effective in the desert, and when it dived down to drop its bomb, it gave off an unearthly shriek. Its effect was not only physical, but psychological.
Sterling's mission to destroy all the aircraft at Sidi Haneish is audacious. First, they must drive 40 miles across a featureless desert in the dark. The SAS not only face extreme desert temperatures, but they must also avoid hazardous rocks that could cripple their vehicle. If they are spotted en route by the enemy, they could be strafed by deadly Stuka dive bombers from the airfield they are about to attack. Even if they make it to their target undetected, they must strike with the element of surprise and blast every aircraft in sight before the Germans know what's hit them. When the enemy react, the SAS will be totally outgunned by mortars, machine guns, and 20mm cannons from flak positions, which could be turned on the convoy of jeeps and wipe them out. Any surviving planes must be destroyed. The SAS will have to jump from their jeeps, run across open ground under fire, and place bombs on the aircraft by hand. They have just minutes to annihilate as many aircraft as possible, then get out of there. Even then, it's not over. On their journey home, they'll be pursued by enemy aircraft intent on revenge. Sterling's men will have to split into small groups and conceal themselves by day, then travel in the black of night to evade enemy retaliation, and be back to their secret hideout in time for breakfast. But to do this, Sterling needed a mobile desert raiding force, and that required specialist equipment and men. In 1941, Sterling was recovering from a serious back injury in a Cairo hospital after a parachuting accident when he came up with the concept for the SAS. Sterling was persistent. He convinced the British High Command to set up an elite covert force specializing in lightning-fast raids deep behind enemy lines, targeting airfields, ports, and supply dumps. He would need to recruit a special kind of super-skilled soldier.
The qualities Sterling were looking for were toughness, self-reliance, ability to live in uncomfortable situations and with very little food and water for long periods of time.
Unlike the British commandos, the SAS would be lean and mean and made up of just 60 or so men and a handful of officers.
Commandos had been organized and trained and then sent into action. Sterling grabbed whoever he thought would be good, used whatever equipment he could muster, and charged off into the desert to go after Germans.
It had to be regarded as a new type of force, to extract the maximum out of surprise and guile. It had to be capable of approaching its target by land, sea, or air.
The armada of jeeps uses the cover of darkness to approach within 10 miles of their target. After struggling over a steep escarpment, Sterling's men find themselves in the carnage of a recent battlefield. At the rear of the column is a young guards officer, Lieutenant Carol Mather. This young guards officer had ambitions to be an Arctic explorer and was a keen fox hunter. By now, he was no stranger to the hideous sights and acrid smells of war.
We descended across an old battlefield where British corpses were lying still unburied in the full moonlight. The burnt-out tanks and corpses looked cold and comfortless. And I took another swig of rum.
For 20-year-old Cooper, it was a reality check.
I think everyone felt a bit of fear, but it was more eager anticipation. We had a desire to get on with it.
The SAS had spent the last few months building up to this attack. According to some estimates, by July 1942, they'd wiped out some 200 enemy aircraft, as well as dozens of trucks and ammo dumps.
L Detachment had raided all the more important German and Italian aerodromes within 300 miles of the forward area, at least once or twice.
The enemy were now wise to the man they dubbed the Phantom Major.
The Germans increased their security. They started putting up wire barriers and defenses.
At Sidi Haneish, the coalition of German troops and their Italian allies had also beefed up their firepower with machine guns and mortars. These weapons could obliterate soft-skinned vehicles. Sterling has no idea what he'll encounter, and they are now driving into the jaws of hell. For the SAS to succeed against well-prepared German defenses, new tactics are needed.
Our job was to constantly invent new techniques so that the enemy could never predict our operational methods.
Up until now, they had relied upon a remarkable invention to destroy enemy aircraft. An ingenious homemade bomb invented by one of the SAS founding fathers, Jock Lewis. We've asked an explosives expert to cook up an exact reconstruction of what became known as the Lewis bomb.
Okay, we're going to try and represent a Lewis bomb. Our test case is going to be a cart, and we're going to see what the results of this is. And from our research, the original bomb was somewhere in the region of about a pound for finished weight. It consisted of a charge of plastic explosive, some thermite, which is iron 3 oxide and aluminium powder, and some diesel oil. The plastic is giving you your blast, your thermite's giving you an incendiary, and I think the idea of the diesel maybe to add to the incendiary effect and also to get it all together into a homogeneous dough. In with the detonator and then place in the cart.
To demonstrate the destructive power of one of these small homemade bombs on a World War II plane, we're using a modern car with an indestructible reputation.
We like the Lewis bomb. It seems to be effective. You know, it worked. It's completely destroyed it. And it wasn't a huge amount of explosive in there. Aeroplanes are, you know, obviously made from lightweight construction, so it's, you know, thin aluminium, a lot of fuel. We'd almost certainly blown it apart, set it on fire. I think it would be, it wouldn't be taking part in the war anymore. Had one of those been placed inside it, its fighting days would be over.
Effective though it was, the Lewis bomb had one major disadvantage. It had to be manually placed on each aircraft. This meant infiltrating airfields on foot, which was risky, time-consuming, and the number of targets limited to the number of bombs an SAS man could carry. But a revolutionary new battle wagon, the US-made Willys Jeep, was about to provide Sterling with a totally new way of raiding airfields. He'd got his hands on 20 of these just before the raid on Sidi Haneish.
Like most SAS equipment, the Jeeps were modified. It meant they were a means of transport, a survival system, and a weapons platform.
I think I'm right in saying these were the first vehicles seen in the Middle East with four-wheel drive. An immense improvement for crossing sandy terrain, tough, versatile, and with a decent mileage to the gallon. 2 men and their kit was the payload. For operations, we could put an extra man in the back.
The lightweight four-wheel drive vehicle weighed 1¼ tons and was powered by a 4-cylinder engine. But SAS Jeeps were radically modified to suit their purpose.
This is 1942 Willys Jeep, found in a scrapyard in Egypt a number of years ago. Because these vehicles carried a lot more weight than the standard Jeep, with all the extra fuel cans, the extra ammunition, the water and the personnel, they actually put in a thicker leaf spring. These bags were known as bailout bags. If the vehicle got damaged or whatever, the guys could literally grab one of these bags. They had survival bits and pieces in there to help them out. This is actually a German jerry can. Later on in the war, the British copied this design, and that is why the British call them jerry cans. Now, if you see the white cross, that says this is a water can and not a fuel can. On the rear of the vehicle, we have 2 spare wheels. Punctures were a very big problem out there with the rough terrain they were going over. Also on the back, we have 2 sand channels. When they did bog down or they were in really soft sand, they could get these off under the wheels and get the vehicle moving as quickly as they could.
This was the perfect vehicle with which to take the fight to the enemy. Each Jeep was fitted with a set of twin machine guns, some of which had been salvaged from bombers.
I'd originally picked up a Vickers K from a crash-light bomber and got it working. It was very impressive.
The Vickers. When the SAS were operating in North Africa, weapons were in short supply, but these weren't. The RAF had stored loads of them, and this was a fact that Sterling took full advantage of. It was loaded with a drum magazine and contained 100 .303 rounds. It fired at a rate of 1,000 rounds a minute, but this wasn't good enough for Sterling. He mounted 2 of these bad boys at the front of the Jeep, perfect for a raid.
For the young SAS trooper, it was an impressive weapon.
It had a high rate of fire, but it was an aerial machine gun. And if you're not up in an aircraft with the coolant system, it soon became overheated. But then, our actions were very short and sharp. We were in, bang, 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 and out.
The machine gun-toting Jeeps provided Sterling with a whole new tactical approach.
I said, let's drive onto the field and shoot up the planes from the cars. We've got RAF Vickers guns. After all, they were designed to shoot up aircraft. We'll do a quick tour, knocking off as many planes as we can.
But in the chaos of a high-speed night engagement, over 60 machine guns would be letting rip from 18 Jeeps. Sterling needs to get a grip on his formation's firepower.
When I advance, follow me in your 2 columns, and on my green very light, open fire. Outwards at the aircraft. Follow exactly in each other's tracks. 5 yards apart. Speed not more than 4 miles per hour.
You'd expect the SAS to use the mantra of speed, aggression, and surprise, and be in and out as quickly as possible. But with the chaos of a night attack, it was important they maximise their firepower on target and avoid friendly fire.
Sterling in the lead vehicle, with his battle fleet following safely behind, simply has to fire a green flare to unleash a double broadside.
When we opened up, the noise was deafening. I had to take care not to lean forwards or backwards into the line of fire.
This arrowhead formation, with Sterling's Jeep firing forwards and 2 columns strung out behind, each firing to the left and right, gives the convoy an impressive arc of fire. Although a mass jeep-borne attack has never been tried before, the dress rehearsal leaves Sterling satisfied they had a good chance of success.
The attack at least would have the advantage of surprise.
Sterling and his band of jeeps are just 5 miles from the target, but they're running late after a rash of punctures. This was no surprise to the battle-hardened Mather.
We had 15 before we reached our objective, and for each one, a halt of 5 minutes had to be made. Of course we were overloaded. We always were. And this took its toll on the tires, springs, and sometimes sumps.
The desert begins to flatten out and harden, indicating they're close to the coastal plain. Sterling's fleet comes to a halt. The detachment's navigator, Corporal Mike Sadler, tells him they are now less than a mile from the German airfield. After about 40 miles and 3 compass legs in the dark, it's been an incredible feat of navigation.
This was in the days before GPS. The SAS would navigate using a sun compass by day,
finding true north from the sun's position at noon,
and theodolite by night,
where precise angles over long distances could be measured from the stars.
They check their guns and ammunition, and Sterling runs through the plan of attack one last time.
He spoke casually, as if putting us into our butts for a grouse drive.
Right, lads, we haven't got much time. At the edge of the aerodrome, form a line abreast, and all guns spray the area. Remember, aim low and aim at the petrol tanks.
After the attack, the formation will split up into groups, each making their own escape. L Detachment must then move as quickly as possible to the south and southwest of the airfield, where they will return to their rendezvous points independently, moving only in complete darkness. But it's more than 40 miles back in the desert. Due to the delays, there's only 2 hours of darkness left. Come daylight, it's the SAS who will become the hunted. They will have to rely upon their skills and training to operate independently behind enemy lines and finish their mission regardless.
They know what they have to do. If a man goes down or the plan changes, they'll just crack on.
To survive the 40-mile dash back to their desert base, the SAS would have to rely upon their unique Special Forces training.
The desert is a super tough environment. It's very hot in the day and very cold at night. You need the right clothing, excellent logistics, and need to be self-sufficient.
Sterling's unit, forged in the furnace of the Western Desert, were masters of their environment. Choosing comfort over conformity, they effectively wore what they wanted or needed. They had sunglasses, shorts, and suede desert boots with crepe soles for the hot days. To combat burning sun and blowing sand, Arab-style shamags. With water so precious, they never washed or changed clothes. Beards were their trademark.
All the men chosen personally by Sterling were exceptional independent thinkers, and some regarded by the regular army as misfits. They were drawn from a broad swathe of British society. The first band of recruits came from the Guards Commandos. Some, like Sterling, were blue bloods. Others came from inner-city slums, suburban estates, and rural hamlets. The SAS attracted men with superior fitness and fighting skills from all Allied nationalities. When Sterling heard about a contingent of Free French paratroopers waiting for new orders, he recruited them. Corporal André Zernheld, a Jewish philosophy professor, was one of these men who eagerly volunteered for the crack outfit. This raid would make him a national hero. But all the men, regardless of where they came from, were united in their passion for dangerous duty with this new and unconventional fighting force.
The man is the regiment, and the regiment is the man.
The SAS and their fleet of armed jeeps fan out and fly towards the airfield. Suddenly, less than half a mile from the runway and their prize, Dozens of German aircraft revealed themselves spread out across the aerodrome. The SAS are heartened to see an airfield crammed with some of the most lethal aircraft built to date. There are Heinkel 111s. Renowned as fast medium bombers, they were originally designed as transport aircraft. Fighter aircraft include Messerschmitts and the SAS's Nemesis, the highly versatile and deadly Stuka ground attack aircraft. Time is of the essence. Sterling's men are ready to go. The 18 jeeps hit full speed and head towards the runway.
We just rode onto the airfield.
Now they are committed, but as they close in, the runway suddenly lights up. It looks like they're driving into a trap. The men ready themselves for the fight of their lives.
I thought we'd been spotted, but it was an aircraft coming into land. It was perfect for us. I hit the accelerator and charged straight for the aircraft.
This was a huge stroke of luck for Sterling and his men. They knew they were in the right place, and the target and its layout was lit up. It was all set for a field day.
Sterling opens fire on the moving Heinkel. The other jeeps join in with their twin Vickers. As it taxis down the runway, the Heinkel is cut to shreds. Sterling then turns his men's attention to the two rows of planes. He fires his very flare pistol. At the signal, the jeeps drop into their arrowhead formation. Cooper wastes no time in opening up.
He drove right up the middle of the runway. Either side of us was an assortment of planes, with the twin Vickers firing all the way down.
The more experienced Mather was at the rear of Sterling's battle convoy.
We followed David in our two columns. In 1 minute, we were amongst the parked aircraft. Messerschmitts, Stukas, Junkers and Heinkels lay all around us. We wound slowly like a snake, firing at the aircraft as we went.
With each Vickers having an effective range of over a mile, the 60-plus machine guns put out an awesome firepower of over 60,000 rounds a minute.
The magazines of our 60 guns contained a mixture of ball, armor-piercing, tracer and incendiary bullets.
There's more to a bullet than meets the eye. The SAS used 3 types. Ball is a standard round designed for killing power. Armor-piercing is a sharp, tough round made of tungsten, designed for penetrating metal and armor. Tracer are ball rounds, which light up as they fly through the air. This allows the operator to see where they're firing and walk it onto the target. By combining and mixing these bullets in a magazine, the SAS can fire accurately in the dark and kill, smash, and obliterate any target.
It was like a duck shoot, just pouring fire into these Junkers and Stukas and watching the bullets tear through the fuselage, and then bang, they explode.
Some of the aircraft would only be 15 yards away, and as I passed them at the end of the column, they would glow red and explode with a deafening thud, and there would be a great heat.
The enemy is not about to take this lying down. Defenders rush to mount a fearsome defense. Flak positions, mortars, and personal weapons are brought to bear on the jeep convoy. One of the machine gunners, Bombardier John Robson, is hit in the head. He's killed instantly. Sterling's men, exposed on the runway and silhouetted by burning planes, start to receive a storm of incoming fire. The SAS raiding party has stirred up a hornet's nest of German defenders.
We fired into their huts and tents, and we could see 1 or 2 figures running helplessly about.
Any resistance is ruthlessly cut down by the multiple Vickers. But then one of the dreaded flak positions starts bumping shells towards Sterling's convoy.
We were swinging round when an ack-ack gun some 300 yards away opened up on us wildly. Our portside guns returned the fire, but the gunner had hit one of our jeeps in the center of the column.
Sterling's Jeep takes a direct hit.
Suddenly, there was a hell of an explosion, and we stopped. David shouted, "Seekins, get out and see what's going on." And of course, there was a hole right through our engine. We were knocked out. One right through the bonnet. 20mm cannon.
Sterling orders his men to turn their fire on the anti-aircraft gun that took out his Jeep. Within seconds, it's silenced. Sterling then orders all the drivers to switch off their engines and gathers his men.
How much ammo have you got left?
2 drums.
1 drum.
God, you've been getting rid of it. Don't fire unless you're certain of a target. Now listen carefully. We'll finish the circle and then move back and knock off the clump planes on the perimeter. Then we'll beat it. Start up! Start up!
The battle column moves off once again, destroying the planes that remain around the perimeter. As they make their final pass, Paddy Mayne decides to go off on his own solo mission.
Paddy Mayne spotted an untouched bomber, and jumping from his Jeep with a bomb in his hand, ran up to it and, placing the bomb in its engine, ran back and caught us up.
The Lewis bomb planted by Paddy Mayne is just about to blow. The Jeeps are dangerously close to the blast zone. Sterling orders his men to pull out. The hastily fleeing convoy narrowly escapes the blast from the Lewis bomb planted impulsively by Paddy Mayne. But their deadly duty is done.
We had burned 30 aircraft, damaged more and lost 1 man. Killed. The whole thing had taken 15 minutes.
6 Jeeps have been hit but are still running, and 3 knocked out. But the SAS cannot allow one of their precious battle wagons to fall into enemy hands.
There are 2 things the SAS never tried to leave behind on the battlefield. Firstly, a man, and secondly, equipment. The enemy can gain valuable intelligence from it.
They slap a Lewis bomb on the crippled Jeep. Sterling and Cooper cram into another alongside the corpse of the fallen machine gunner, John Robson. All the Jeeps exit the airfield and make a rapid escape.
We rode off the airfield in pursuit. Aircraft exploded all around us, and as we left the perimeter, our own Jeep went up in a ball of flame.
But now they face their toughest task, getting home alive. With the Vickers machine gun ammo now exhausted, Sterling's men are down to just their personal weapons.
Sterling persuaded HQ to let us have the Thompson submachine guns. The pistols, we all had Webleys. They were only for defence.
The Webley pistol, the British Army officer's service revolver. It was originally designed to be hidden in clothing and carried at all times. But you'd be lucky to hit anything over 10 yards away. It fired a 38 round. It was simple, had few working parts, and as such, was less likely to jam or misfire. But like most revolvers, it was slow to load. And in this case, only fired 6 rounds. It was a dated piece of kit on an evolving theatre of war. The combatants in World War II had different ideas for personal protection, and the weapons they produced rather typified the individual characteristics of each nation. The Americans had a much more efficient piece of kit than the Webley, one that packed a powerful punch. The Colt Browning Automatic, a US icon. It fires a 45-round slug and holds a 7-round magazine. It was easy to cock. You can only fire it as well if the handle and grip are depressed. It's a beautifully manufactured weapon. This pistol is a great close-quarter weapon. It's light, it's reliable. That's why it's been in service for over 70 years. The Luger, arguably one of the most iconic weapons of the Second World War. You'll have seen it in virtually every war movie. Its cleverly engineered cocking mechanism is its standout feature. It was £2, but a real work of art. It fired a 9mm round and was beautifully engineered, and in some cases, handcrafted. This, though, was a prized possession to the Allies and the Germans. They'd risk life or limb just to get their hands on them, and the Germans knew it and would booby-trap them.
Leaving more than 30 burning aircraft behind, the SAS Jeep convoy, as per Sterling's original plan, splits up into smaller parties.
We melted into the desert in 2s and 3s as arranged.
Fanning out, the aim is for each group to put as much distance between themselves and the enemy.
There are two tactical ways for a raiding force to escape. The first is stick together and combine firepower, supplies and ammunition. The second is to split up, bomb bursts, so you're harder to track.
The men knew that from first light, an irate enemy air force would be out hunting them down in the exposed desert.
We drove very fast, watching the stars for our direction, and watching for that paleness to appear, which meant dawn.
Dawn reveals parties of SAS jeeps fleeing across the desert. Most have at least 10 miles to cover before the safety of the forward operating base. Soon, the Luftwaffe will be hunting them down.
The desert can be your best friend or worst enemy. It's a very clean battlefield. There are no civilians and no built-up areas. On the downside, there's no cover from the enemy. Once you're exposed, you're dead. Dust trails can be seen for miles and noise carries, so speeds must be kept down during the day.
It's at this point that the tide of luck starts to turn against the raiders. Sterling's group consists of 4 jeeps. One of them grinds to a halt, the engine seized. They have no choice but to abandon it and blow it to bits so the enemy can't use it. 14 men pile into 3 jeeps and continue their race for safety. The small convoy is overladen and running slower and slower. As the sun begins to appear, they find themselves lost, out in the open, and vulnerable to air attack. They find a bowl-like depression and race for cover amongst the nearby scrub. A few minutes later, there's nothing but silence and an eerie calm. It is a chance to rest, regroup, and bury their dead. Recent recruit John Robson was just 21 years old when he lost his life at Sidi Haneish. With no prayers prepared, Sterling improvised a memorial.
I think we'll just go stand around the grave a minute. There was no cross. Yet for this fraction of time, lost in the middle of nowhere, there was dignity.
Now about 18 miles away from the forward operating base, Carol Mather's convoy gets a lucky break.
The stars paled and the dawn came, and with it a blessing. A great white blanket of mist engulfed us so that we were able to continue driving unseen.
It's a gamble. 30 minutes later, the fog begins to lift, leaving them exposed and easy prey for German aircraft.
To our front was a short and patchy scrub, so we found a patch of camel thorn rising not more than a foot, dispersed our vehicles amongst it, and camouflaged up.
Survival in the desert depends upon the art of camouflage. The SAS were masters in finding cover in the featureless landscape.
Travelling at night means you need to lay up in the day undetected by hiding your vehicles in the shadows and, of course, painting them pink.
To break up vehicle outlines, rather than a uniform desert beige, the SAS used a variety of different paint combinations.
The workshop camouflaged a vehicle, and I said, nah, that's not true. And this chap turned around and said, sure, and by Christ, here are the tools, do it yourself. When I'd done, he laughed his bloody head off. He said it was like something from the bloody fairground. It was in pink, blues, greens, yellows, all pastel colours. To people who hate the desert, it's just dull and brown, but for those who like it, there's tremendous colour in it. I love the desert.
Even with the best disguise, there was always the chance of compromise by the enemy. To avoid being caught with their vehicles, the men would watch over them in their own lying up positions. Mather's team, safely under cover in some tall scrub, decided to revive themselves with a little breakfast.
No sooner had the tea come to boil and the sausages started sizzling than the first aircraft appeared. Aircraft, someone said in that quiet and urgent voice. A Stuka weaving and searching its way down the long, low escarpment. I told the men to scatter themselves 400 yards away from the vehicles and not to move. Soon the sky became alive with aircraft, circling angrily round and round like a swarm of angry bees, out to seek vengeance on the destruction of the night before.
They've encountered these terrifying ground attack aircraft before. Mather and his men were effectively defenseless as the German Stukas come in for the kill.
We all froze, and as they passed over us, they simultaneously let off a burst of machine gun fire. Not at us, but into the cliff beyond. They were blind and did not see us.
They bypassed Mather's skillfully hidden position, but another SAS Jeep convoy is still exposed and in danger of being spotted. It's the small contingent of Free French paratroopers who are in the line of fire. Corporal André Zernheld is hit in the shoulder. Both men jump from the Jeep and try to get away. But Zernheld is cut down. The second man to die on the raid at Sidi Haneish. The Stukas attacked 9 times before they cleared. But when they return, they'll know exactly where to search for the fleeing Jeeps. Carol Mather prays for night to fall so they can escape from their lying up position.
Darkness fell upon us. We threw off the camouflages, filled up with petrol and water.
Navigating only by compass and the stars, Mather relies upon instinct and guts to get back to their HQ.
All the usual uneasy feelings began to creep back into the back of my mind. Supposing we are lost, and our petrol gives out.
He carries on regardless on the same compass bearing. Sterling's team are down to 50 miles of fuel when they hit an unexpected crest. Below them, 50 yards away, is a truck under camouflage netting and some men milling around.
Home never looked sweeter.
After a day and a night of escape and evasion, they've hit the forward operating base dead on. Beside the truck is a group of men making tea. They find a relaxed Paddy Mayne has beaten them home.
Ugh, it was a quite good crack.
Mather and his crew are also there. He was the first to arrive earlier that morning.
I could recognize every stone, and there, my God, was a real and solid 3-tonner draped in its camouflage net. I was right the whole time, and my bearing and distances were correct.
With the exception of the 2 killed in action, the rest of the men arrived back safely to base that morning. Their bold raid had resulted in 25 enemy planes destroyed and at least a dozen more severely damaged. Although the raid had been a success by anyone else's standard, Major Sterling was not satisfied. He gathered his men.
It wasn't nearly good enough. We should have achieved 100% results. Some of you let off everything you saw instead of doing what I told you. Shooting low and aiming at the targets in your immediate range. If you had aimed more carefully, we could have killed every plane on that field, not just wounding some.
Sterling's post-operational dressing down typified the high standards he expected of L Detachment.
I didn't want the men to get too blasé about the business.
The mass Jeep attack on Sidi Haneish was the most spectacular raid for the SAS. Following its success, they spent the rest of that year operating in the western desert. In total, Sterling's men pulled off over 40 separate raids and claimed to have destroyed 320 Axis aircraft. His work was the genesis for all future special forces.
By destroying the planes at the Sidi Haneish airfield, the SAS had not only weakened the German Luftwaffe and German air power, but had actually weakened German ground power by reducing the amount of supplies the German army was getting.
July 1942 proved to be a turning point in the Second World War. Rommel's advance was stalled at El Alamein. The Allies would push him out of Egypt within 3 months, and the rest of Africa within a year. The SAS were legendary. They caused more damage than any other unit of equal size. For Stirling, the man Rommel dubbed the Phantom Major, the Sidi Haneish raid was the apex of his active career as the SAS commander. But the noose was closing in. In January 1943, he was captured by the Germans during a raid, only to escape, and then was recaptured by the Italians. He made 4 more escape attempts before he was banished to the infamous Colditz Castle in the heart of Germany, where he spent the rest of the war. Sir David Stirling, the founding father of the SAS, was knighted in 1990. Paddy Mayne continued his one-man wrecking spree across North Africa until promoted to lieutenant colonel and commanding officer of the newly minted 1st Special Air Service. He was controversially denied a Victoria Cross, but awarded the Distinguished Service Order no less than 4 times. Carroll Mather was also taken prisoner, but he escaped. After the war, he went on to serve in Parliament, rising through the British Conservative Party to become a close confidant of Baroness Thatcher. He was knighted in 1997. These men were the nucleus of Stirling's SAS, their hit-and-run raids in North Africa inspired by their motto, "Who dares wins," a mantra that would change modern warfare forever.